Hello YouTube, welcome back campaigners. Once again, this is Campaign Terrain. I'm your host, That Guy Cross. Now, if you've been following along with us, and I hope you have, we built the house, we built the yard, we've built the ground that the yard is on. We built some smaller plants, and this week we're going to build a little bit bigger plant. We're going to hit it up with some palm trees. It's just a quick and simple build. We're going to jump right into it after this quick bump. During this bump, I'm going to tell you the parts you need. I'm also going to show you some pictures of some palm trees so you kind of see where we're going with that. And then we'll get right into it. While you're watching all that, there's going to be some links and stuff down in the bottom. So if you want to support the channel, those are down there. But meanwhile, like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in just a second. Thanks for coming. Time for a little palm tree info. If all goes well, you should be seeing some still photos of palm trees right now. And here's what I've learned about palm trees in the last couple of weeks, 3 weeks working on this. They have 4 different types of fronds, none of which we're making today. We're only kind of sort of getting close. We're going to want a frond-ish shape. So they come in, so we're going to skip the fronds. We're just going to make what we can this week. Palm trees do not grow in the wild singles, in single bits. Usually they're encountered in clumps. So we're going to, on our bases, we're going to have clumps of 2 or 3 trees and put them next to each other. There's not going to be too much, I'm not going to put any shrubs or anything under it, I don't think. I might put the last of my little succulents from last week in them. So, but they grow in clumps, usually 3 to 5. They are a lot bigger than you think. Palm trees are approximately 60 feet tall, which by my scale of 4 feet to the inch makes a tree about 12 inches tall. They are about 3 feet thick, which would be about 3/4 of an inch thick. The fronds are normally 20 feet, which is 4 inches. Actually, it should be 5 inches, about 5 inches long for a frond. So, we're not going to quite get to that dimension. We're going to have a little bit smaller palm trees, but they do come in different varieties. This is specifically for date palms. So, they are a lot taller than you think. They grow in clumps together. And here's the last thing. In the wild, they don't look like you see them because the fronds don't ever get cut off. What you normally see with the smooth sides are the fronds having been cut off of the trees, leaving a stalk in the middle. So in order to get that way, we're building them in clumps, but I'm leaving them trimmed down. I'm making them so they look like the trimmed down version. 2 reasons. 1, that's what people think of when they think of palm tree. And 2, even if they were naturally growing in clumps, they may be tended by people and therefore trimmed down anyway, because it does help them to live longer and to yield a better crop of dates or coconuts or whatever your type of palm you have. So let's jump into that. Here's what we're going to need for the build for this week. We're going to need a base like the ones we made in last week's video. So I'll put a link up to the top there if you want to see how those are made, but we're going to need a base. We're going to need some foam. Now this is going to be the craft foam. This is the narrow stuff. It's about, it says 2 millimeter on it, so it's about 2 millimeters thick. And we are going to cut that into some strips of about 3/4 of an inch wide and about a 1/2 inch wide, give or take. We are layering it so that it tapers a little, so you will need 2 layers of that in little strips. We're going to need some coat hangers, and that's this kind that comes with the cardboard tube on it. So what we actually need are the tubes. So we're going to be taking these coat hangers and taking the wires out of those, but we're going to need the coat hangers to go with it. We are going to need some craft paper. That's the brown paper, like comes in paper bags, and this comes in different weights. You will probably want to go for sort of a medium weight. What I'm using here is a little bit lightweight, and I actually had a little bit heavier, but that's what I've got to work with today. We are going to need some leaves. For this, I'm using ficus leaves from a fake ficus tree. These are fabric leaves from a fake tree. You can use anything that you want to get the frond shape that you want, but I find that these work really well. What I'm going to do is cut along both sides of these and get these trimmed down. So we're going to need some of those. We are going to need just a little bit of masking tape at the top of each tree, and we're going to need some scissors to cut the leaves with. Last, there's a lot of glue that goes into this because we glue the paper around the tree and around the tree and around the tree. So you're going to need some hot glue, and you can use other glues if you want, but hot glue is going to be quick and easy and work for you. As ever, I always keep mine on low temp, so don't worry. Even though we're going to be pressing a lot of this paper on there, there shouldn't be too much worry of burning yourself since we're keeping it on low temp. Now, if you're making a bunch of these trees, we glue all the way around and all the way around. So if you're making a bunch, you're going to need a bunch of hot glue. So that's it. Glue, done. Scissors, tape, paper, cardboard tube, a little bit of foam, and a base. Oh, and the leaves. Okay, we're going to start with the stalks. Now this particular tube I've got here happens to be just shy of 16 inches long. I'm going to cut this at 8 inches and leave the other inch that's slightly shorter, and that'll be fine. Now you can use a knife, you can use a saw, you can use a pair of scissors if it's not going to crush your tube too much. Whatever you need to cut the tube. If you're using a different kind of tube, like a thin piece of PVC, you can use a pipe cutter, anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this at 8 inches. Now I'm using the marks on my cutting mat to do that. So I'm just kind of lining up at 8 inches, and as you can see, well, actually you can't see my hands in the way, but as you can see, the knife goes through these pretty easily, so there's nothing to cut in these. And got a couple, retract that. And so we've got a couple of stalks, not quite the same height as each other, which is great because I like a little variance anyway. Now this one's actually made out of a 6-inch stalk, so as you can see, these are going to be a little bit taller. Now all of these are actually a bit short in the scale to what they should be, because this tube should be a foot tall, but I find that they want to fall over at that height. So we're going to go ahead and go with what we got here. So as I said before, we are going to cut these into strips. This is the craft foam. So I've already taken the liberty here. Now these are about 3/4 of an inch and just 3/8 of an inch, but a 1/2 inch would work. Anything like that. So we're going to go for about 3/4 of an inch to a 1/2 inch, and take the hot glue, put a little drop at the end of the rubber, about the first inch or so. We are going to take that and wind that onto our tube. Okay. Then we're going to fill in this last bit on the tube with the glue and wrap that the rest of the way around. Now right where it connects, we're going to take that and cut that off. Again, knife, scissors, whatever works for you. This does not have to be particularly perfect. We are going to cover all of this. So we've got that one. We're going to do the same thing with the smaller strip, only on the outside of that strip, so it tapers down like this. So I'm going to speed up the video here so you can see me doing that. Then I'm going to do it to the opposite end and do both of these stalks, and you'll see me in just a second. Okay, we got a couple of stalks ready to go, and let me show you how I cut my leaves on my plant. Your plant may vary from mine, but this is how mine looks. Most of the leaves have 3 per stem. So I've got a stem here and then 3 here. Let me show you how I cut those off. First, I want to take those close to the stem, to the main stalk. Then on this longest one, it's got its own stem that comes down. So you want to take that, cut at the base of it. And that's going to leave these two connected. Now if you look, one of them's got a shorter stem than the other, and we want a little bit that we can deal with there. So you want to take the next longest one, and you want to clip at the bottom of it, leaving it this last bit for the last leaf. So that's going to get as long of 3 stems as we can for those. Now, on mine, like I said, each one's going to vary, but on mine I have 2 different sizes of leaves, which you can see here. Both of these are close enough. We're going to use both of these for fronds. Now they also have a smaller set of leaves right here, and these I don't use. These I've been setting aside so I can come along and make something like a a jungle plant later. So you can definitely want to save those, but right now we're concentrating on the biggest and medium-sized leaves. So we're going to take both of those size leaves, and then we want to take these leaf, and some of these you'll have varying in quality, so sometimes the stems aren't attached quite as well. So that's not really going to matter because we're going to trim all that away. So you want to follow this vein that's here in the center, and you want to go about a ½ inch to either side and go in a straight line and cut that off. Now it's going to leave you this little strip. You're going to end up with 2 of these for every leaf, and if you're making a bunch of palm trees, you're going to end up with hundreds of these little offcuts. I have no idea what to do with them. I will figure something out later. As you can see, I've been collecting mine, but just be aware you're going to end up with a whole pile of these. Again, ½ inch down the other side, and that's good to go. Now, you can speed this up if you do not get as picky or particular about it and you just cut them and go. Now, at first I was trying to make, like, if they were off cut like this, I was going out of my way to make all of them really, quote, better looking and all that, and trim off the little excess. You don't need to do that. It's really not going to affect the build. So you just want to take it, line it up, and you want preferably a pair of scissors long enough to go all the way across the leaf in one cut, and just, and that's it. And you can speed this up to where you're going through these pretty quick. Now, I will say, I would suggest sitting down and watching a program or listening to something and cutting these and cutting these and cutting these and cutting these and cutting these, because if you're making a bunch of them, you're going to start with hundreds of leaves, and you're going to cut those into hundreds of fronds. So have something to hold all of your leaves in, all of your fronds, and all of your offcuts. And like I said, this is going to take a while. This is not a quick build. It's simple, it's easy, and it's way cheap. I got my ficus tree for free because somebody was throwing it out. So, quick, it is not. Cheap, easy, and simple. We got all 3 of those. So for this build, we're going to take advantage of this being a core tube, and we're going to put some in this core. And so you're going to want to cram as many as you can down in there. Stalk all the way, the stem all the way down in, and I have found that about 5 will fit in here easily, 6 will fit in here a little bit tough, and any more than that is going to be a problem. So you want to take a bunch of those and just press those down in. You want to make sure that you've arranged them radially so that they all sort of rotate out from the stick out from the center, and just sort of put their stems down the center hole and press them into place. So I got 5, 6, and I'm not going to be able to get any more in there. So I'm going to arrange those radially, and then I'm going to take my hot glue gun, reach down inside, and just pump a bunch of glue in there to hold those in place. So I don't know if you can see it, but there's glue going down in that hole, and you can take time while it's cooling to make sure that you arrange those in a good shape. I'm going to give this a second to cool. I'll be right back, and then we'll work on the next layer. Okay, so we've got our first set of fronds at the top. Now, for all the next round, we're going to take them and trim them down a little. Now, I know I told you you wanted a long stem, but that's only so we can get that first round in. Now, if you have anywhere they've broken off, or if you just want to trim them off, either way is fine. Now, you're going to want at least about 1 inch on here. If you get any less than that, you're going to not be able to get this attached. So, you want to take the tape and just start a little bit on there so that we've got it anchored. And we're going to take the rest of these and put them in to the tape as we go. Again, always pointing them out radially. So I'm just going to go ahead and go all the way around this. I'm going to leave that running for a minute. Just for the record, you're going to need about 20 fronds total. So you're going to have the 6 at the top plus about 14 others. I find that anything larger than that, you end up getting a little squirrely and it gets difficult to hold them in place. So each one you want to anchor it on a little bit of tape. A little bit of pressure, hold it in place, attach the tape, and keep going. Now you're going to want to keep this tape pretty snug in here to hold these against this. So we're just going to go round and round with about 3 to 4 fronds per rotation. Now that I got the tape in place, all the fronds in place, I took the tape and I tapered it down so we've got a little bit of a cone up here at the top. That's going to make this next step a little bit easier. So we're going to take our craft paper, our brown paper, kind of fold it over itself a few times. Make sure that you've got one edge that's nice and smooth and flat and straight. And then you want to go about a good 1.5 inches in and cut that. I would actually suggest 2 inches. But anywhere between 1.5 inches and 2 inches, and just cut a strip off of there. Now you're going to take your strip and as many layers as you can in a row, deep, it's thick. You want to take it and tear it. Don't get right up on it. You want to tear it. You definitely want it to have rougher little edges here. You can do it one layer at a time if that makes it easier, however you want to do it, but you want to tear it lengthwise the entire distance. You want to take it and just pull it apart down that center the whole way. You do not particularly want this to be even or smooth. That's what we're going for, is that rough edge. So if pulling it apart like this works better for you, great. If ripping it long ways and just letting it run works better for you, whichever. But we want a nice rough edge on that. And you want to take one of your strips, and this next part is very important. You want to start at the top of the tree. You do not want to start at the base. You want to start at the top. With your rough edge up, you want to start gluing that around. And then as you come down, we're going to overlap this a little so that there's a little bit of a gap each time, and we're basically doing a big spiral all the way down the tree. So this is where all that hot glue I was talking about earlier comes in. So we're going to start this. With the rough edge facing up, start at the top of the tree and wind our way down. Now the best way I've found to do this is I take the tree and I lay it down. I run the hot glue on the smooth bottom edge of the paper. And you just want to run a long line of that down it as far as you think you can wind it before it starts to cool off. And then, like I said, we're just going to keep doing that the rest of the way down the tree. So I'm going to let the camera run here for a second while I do some layers to this, and we'll see how it's going. Couple things to consider. If you get little wrinkles in here, and as you start to do it, they press up, just put a little extra glue right where those wrinkles are and just go on over them and keep going. When you get to the end of the strip of paper, all you have to do is don't glue like the last end. Start the next round and then glue this on top of that round so that it holds it in place, and then just keep going and keep going and keep going until you're all the way down to the bottom. Here at the end, you want to take the paper and you want to switch direction a little bit. So you want to get a little bit of glue on there, and instead of trying to wrap all the way off the end, at this point you actually want to wrap it right at the bottom, just like once around. Now you're going to end up with a little bit of a gap here. Now you can leave that, or you can take that and fill that in with the glue. Now be really careful. This is a good and easy way to burn yourself if you press this in with your hand, because this stuff will want to squish out. So just, if you do this, be really careful and just sort of softly press it into place. Don't really get in there and cram into it, because it will squirt the glue out onto your hand. So finish off any last little bit. Fill in any gaps you feel the need to. Press into place. Don't let the hot glue get you. But as it's cooling, you don't want to leave that ridge on the outside. So after it's had a little second to where it's not going to hurt you to get it on your hand, then you want to go ahead and wipe that off. You kind of want to press that into place. And you can get that as tight or loose as you want. Now, palm trees are made up in layers, so having those stand out like that would be fine anyway. Now, these are going to be attached to a base. You're not going to be touching the base of these, all of the bottom part of the tree all the time, so you can leave it if you want. If you have any paper that's left over at the end, we do want a flat bottom so that we can glue it down. So, there you go. And that is a completed tree. That's one tree ready to go. You do not have to do anything else to it. It looks like a palm tree. It's going to be a palm tree on your table. It'll be fine. But if you want, you can take some dark brown paint and get a dry brush and brush it on here so that it catches the texture and pattern on the tree. And you don't want to just slather it on, otherwise it's just a brown tree. You want a dry brush, and I would brush from the top down so that you catch all of these little ridges that we created in that. And that's it. That's the tree done. So I'm going to attach a couple of these to some bases, and it's really as simple as goop the bottom of the tree and decide where you want it on the base and plant your tree. If you want, you can come along after and sprinkle some glue down in here, and like some white glue, and sprinkle it with sand. If you've got sand that matches that color, great, or you can come back and touch it up however you want to do it. But the hot glue should hold it in place, and then like I said, I would put some white glue around the bottom and some sand, and that will help to further secure it. But as you can see, this is already attached and good to go. Alright, see you in just a second with some completed ones. I'll show you some scenes of how they look on the desert floor, and then I'll have a quick wrap up. So see you in just a second after the bump. Well, there you have it, campaigners. Pretty simple, easy build. They don't take long. It's just a matter of cutting all those fronds. Let me show you a couple things before we go. That's not the only thing. That's not the only type of tree you can make. You can take your fronds and cut all of them into individual little feathers if you want. It just takes a lot longer. Does make a better looking tree. Increases the time by about threefold on those trees. You also don't have to make this just this style of frond. Palm fronds do come in other shapes, so you can make it however you want. You can use these same ideas, as I said, for the jungle plants, and it's really a versatile type of build. You can make it look like a palm tree, or you can make it look like 100 other types of plants. I really hope you've been enjoying all the stuff that I've been bringing to you. We're almost done with the desert playlist. I've got some gardens, some like vegetable type gardens for next week, and then the week after that I'm actually going to show that I'm going to create the gardens themselves next week, and the week after I'm going to show you how to make some things that look like melons and some other types of vegetables that would be on the garden. So stick around for those 2 weeks. I hope you've been enjoying it. If you have, please like, share, subscribe. If you want to support the channel, please, there's stuff down in the bottom. There's the links down there, and we'll see you next time. This has been Campaign Terrain. As ever, I'm your host, That Guy Cross. I love you, and until next time, I wish you luck in your campaign.